Let us continue the discussion on perquisites. We have been discussing perquisites for the past 5 to 6 days, I think. And today let us wind up all the perquisites. In the last lecture, I discussed with you the perquisite of sale of movable asset. And now today I will discuss another main perquisite, that is of sweat equity shares, or when employees stock option plan. I think you must have listened this word ESOPs, employees stock option plan. Do you know, have you listened this concept ESOPs? Please raise your hand. Employees stock option plan. So can anyone explain what is ESOP? Anyone? Can anyone explain what is this employees stock option plan or sweat equity shares? These are basically shares. Yeah, someone wanted to speak. You can please.
Sir, the employees are given an option to, I mean, they are able to given an option to buy the shares of the company at a discounted
less price. Yeah, at less price. Infosys was the first company which introduced the concept of ESOPs in 1996. Before that, we didn't know about ESOP. Infosys introduced this concept in 1996 for the first time. These are basically shares which are offered to the employees, offered, not compulsorily given, offered to the employees, that they can purchase the shares of their company at less price if they want. Why this is done so? There are many reasons. One of the reasons is to make sure that employees stay in the company for long, because when employees changes the job frequently, then fresher who will come will take some time to learn. An already trained person will leave the job, so that is not treated as good for the company. We must be having high retention rates. It shows that in our company the employees are satisfied if they don't leave easily or frequently if they are not moving. So this option, this employee stock option plan, gives some incentive indirectly to the employee that if they will stay in the company for coming 5 to 10 years, then they will get shares of the company at less prices. Also, these ESOPs promotes a sense of feeling amongst the employees that they are not the employee, they are the owners, because equity shareholders are nothing but owners. They are the ultimate risk bearers, so they are the owners. So when they have shares, they start getting the feeling that now it is their company. So such feelings, positive environment, improves the working as well as reputation of that enterprise. So these are the reasons behind, some of the reasons behind giving ESOPs. I am concerned about telling you the tax treatment. So before directly telling you the theory, let me start discussing a small numerical, and then let me ask you, or let me see whether you can tell me logically that what should be the value which is taxable. So let me directly discuss a numerical without telling in exactly that how you should compute the value. So let me discuss a question from my book, a small illustration. So let me discuss directly a perquisite. Let me directly discuss with the help of a numerical, and I think you all can logically tell me the answer. Now X is employee, so I'm discussing an illustration from my book. It is given on page number 4.52. X is employed in P Limited since 10th November 2. Now this is a date on which I started working, 10th November 2002. On 10th April 15, the company offered an option to him that if he will stay in the company for next 5 years, he can purchase 700 shares at 20 per share, whatever will be the market price of the share when you will exercise the option. So simple point that after working in the company for so many years, on 10th April, the company offered, on 10th April 15, the company offered an option to me that if I will stay for next 5 years, that means plus 5 years. If I will stay for next 5 years, that means if I stay till 9th April 2020, this date is if I stay till 9th April 2020 as per what the option has been given to me, then after staying till 9th April, I will get an option. So that means on next day, after staying till 9th April, on 10th April 20, I will get an option. On 10th April 20, I'll get an option to purchase for 700 shares. Option to purchase 700 shares at only 20 rupees. At rupees 20 only. Whatever will be the market price when you purchase the shares doesn't matter, but company will offer you 20. So 5 years in advance they have given the option that whatever will be the market price on that date, whatever will be the market price on that date when you will exercise this option, it doesn't matter. We will give you at 20 rupees. The market price can be only 10 rupees or it can be 10,000 rupees. That we don't know, but we will give you 20 rupees. We will give you the shares at 20 rupees. He will be entitled to exercise this offer for 6 months. Now, employee also need time to think. On 10th April, this option will be given to me, and company says you have 6 months to decide. That means till 9th April, sorry, not 9th April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Till 9th October 20, you have to decide whether you want to exercise this option or not. Otherwise, this option will lapse. It is not a permanent right. We are giving you 6 months. Till 9th October 20, you decide. After this, then if you ask us, then option will lapse. I hope the point is clear. After 6 months, the option will lapse automatically. So this period, this 6-month period where I have to take a decision. This 6-month period is known as exercise period. And when I was able to go to this exercise period, when I stayed in the company for 5 years. So this period is known as vesting period. This is known as vesting period, for which I stayed just to get this option, and this 6-month period during which I have a right to exercise. I also need time to think whether I will purchase the shares or not. That is known as exercise period. Please raise your hand if this much numerical is clear to you. Very good. So most of you have understood this much. Now what happens? So what happens now is that on 1st June 20, X exercised the option to purchase 500 share. Now what happened on 1st June 20, somewhere here. On 1st June 20, I exercised an option to purchase 500 shares. I exercised the option to purchase 500 shares. Of course, at 20. The option to purchase remaining 200 shares was not exercised by X till 9th October. So 200 shares decision was not taken whether he will purchase or not till 9th October. So for this 200 share, there is no option now. It has been lapsed. Now different market price of shares of this share on different dates is given. On 10th April it was 200. When the option was offered to me, at that time the share price was 200. On 1st April 20, beginning of my previous year, when my previous year starts, my first day starts on 1st April 2020, which is first day of my previous year. First day of previous year 2021, the price is 400. 10th April 20, the day when my option starts is 440. On 10th April 20, the share price is 440. On 1st June 20, when I exercised the offer, the share price is 430 on this date. On 9th October 20, when the option will lapse, the share price is 600. Can you think logically now? Is it a perquisite or not? This is first thing. Is it a perquisite or not? Answer is yes. Let me tell you the answer. Answer is yes. Because I am getting this share, one share at only 20 rupees. Had I gone to the market, the price is much more than 20 rupees. So one thing is sure that it is a perquisite. It's a personal benefit to me. My question to you, though I have not told you the theory, but still my question to you is, how much is the value which is taxable? This is what my question. Can you tell me how much value is taxable in my hands? Just logically. No need to tell you any theory. You can think logically. And there are chances that you might get correct answer. How much value is taxable in my hands in this case?
So
as a perquisite of sweat equity share.
So 410 yes? Into 500.
Wrong. 410 into 500. You tell me the correct value. What will be that?
So 2,05,000.
Yeah, 2,05,000 is correct answer. 2,05,000 is correct answer. Please raise your hand those who also think that 2,05,000 is the correct answer. If you think that this is also the answer, so it's logical. 2,05,000 or 5,000. 2,05,000 is the correct answer. Those who are getting this answer, please raise your hand. If you have understood the logic behind it. Those who are getting the answer 2,05,000, if not getting the answer, still try. You might get 2,05,000. Can anyone explain why 2,05,000?
So 430, the amount of like benefit that I received minus 20, that which was recovered.
Why 430? Why I will take 430? Why not 200? Why not 440? Why not 600? There are so many market prices given. Why only 430?
So this is when the option was exercised. So
yes,
this is
so
what
logically, yeah. So logically, on this date, if I am purchasing the share, I am concerned with that date markets, that date market price. Am I right or not? So 430 into 500, this cost I had to bear had I gone to the market, and now I am bearing only 20 into 500. That is amount recovered from the employee. That's it. The difference is 2,05,000. Now I can frame now the theory. That is why I didn't tell you the theory. I can simply say that how do you compute the value of perquisite of sweat equity share? If you want to see any previous slide, you can ask me. Okay, I might move to next slide before you have noted down something. So if you think that you should, you want to note down some points of previous slide, you please tell me. Perquisite of sweat equity share. So what is the value? logically. The value in this case is fair market value of the shares on the date on which option is exercised. This is net benefit minus amount recovered from employee. Recovered is not forcefully, it's only a language. Recovered from employee, that's it for this purpose. Difference is my personal benefit. If you have understood this point, please raise your hands. If you have understood this perquisite, please raise your hand. Okay, now most of the perquisites are over. Most of the perquisites which are mentioned in the rule. This was my 16th perquisite. Okay, in the last lecture I was discussing sale of movable asset. So it is my 16th perquisite. The last class I discussed sale of movable asset, so it is 16th perquisite. 17th and last one. Now perquisite number 17. All remaining perquisites. Remaining all perquisites. Prominent one I have discussed. What do I mean by prominent? Which are mentioned in the income tax rules. Rule number 3. Still, there may be lakhs and crores of perquisites for which we have a common rule to be applied. Can you tell me logically, if apart from this any other perquisite is given, how should I compute the value logically? Can you tell me?
Actual expenditure of the employee minus the amount recovered from the, actual expenditure of the employer less amount recovered from the employee.
Yeah, that's it. It's logical. Actual expenditure of employer or actual cost of employer minus amount contributed by the employee. That's it. Contributed or recovered. Since rules are using the word contributed, I am writing the word contributed. Otherwise, it is just same as recovered, amount contributed by the employee. And how do you determine actual cost? It is arm's length basis. That I am not discussing. That is the concept of international taxation, or even in domestic taxation, I use it as the maximum cost which is there. So that is used basically in transfer pricing, advanced rulings, etc. So I'm not discussing that. That is beyond your semester 3 level. Just to remember, actual cost of employer minus amount contributed by the employee. That's it. And now last perquisite, just one exempt perquisite. Telephone, including mobile phone, is tax free. These are tax free. Though mobile phone can also be used for personal use, but normally official work also happens in mobile phone. So that is why the provisions of the income tax says that telephone including mobile phone is a perquisite, but it is tax free. But still there may be many perquisites which are exempt, but those are separately mentioned in different perquisites. Like in accommodation, I know if it in remote area it is given, it is tax free. In interest free loan, I know if the amount of loan does not exceed 20,000, it is tax free. In medical, I know so many things are tax free. Use of laptop is tax free. So if any theory question comes where you have to give some examples of tax free perquisites, there are many examples. Telephone, why I am separately telling you is that because it is not taxable at all. So there was no such category of telephone which I have taught you earlier. That is why I am telling it separately to you that telephone is exempt. But it's not the only perquisite which is exempt. This you must know. There are some other perquisites which we have covered within those perquisites, that in some cases those perquisites go tax free. With this, all my perquisites are over. If anything to ask, you can ask.
So could you please show the previous slide?
Yeah. Let me show that previous slide, and that is this one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now all the perquisites have been discussed. Let me show you from where we have read these perquisites. That is nothing but rule 3. Let me show you that. So that in future you must know that when you want to check authenticity of what I am telling or what other person is telling or what any other examination is asking you, this is the most authentic source. Just income tax rules and rule 3. You can see, I hope the screen is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from here we have studied all these concepts. Valuation of perquisites, rule 3. This was accommodation. Future, whenever you have time, you should read it. This was medical. It was member of household, domestic servants. It was that household amenities, gas, electricity. It was education, free or concessional education facility. All these points are there. It was interest-free loan. Everything is applied from here. It was free food and non-alcoholic beverages. Gift. Then we had club membership fee. Then we have discussed club, and it was same thing. Credit card was that credit card. Then it is use of movable asset, we have discussed. It is sale of movable asset. And that I told you just now, any other perquisite, that was this point. The value of any other benefit or amenity, service, right or privilege provided by the employer shall be determined on the basis of cost to the employer under an arm's length transaction, as reduced by the employee's contribution, if any. Provided that nothing contained in this clause shall apply to the expenses on telephones, including a mobile phone, actually incurred on behalf of the employee by the employer. That is why I told you that mobile is an exempt perquisite. Now, sweat equity share, I have told you, that was very simple question. In reality, there are so many sub questions to be asked when you compute the perquisite of sweat equity share. But for your level, those things do not come. But they will ask when the share was listed in a stock exchange or not, if it was listed, on which date it was listed, etc., etc. Then we exactly come to know what is the fair market value. But for your level, directly the value will be given to you. Otherwise, you can see this is how we compute closing price of share, etc., etc. That is closing price, who are merchant banker, opening price, recognized stock exchange, specified date. So many things are there. That's it. So I wanted to show you the main source from where we are reading these perquisites. Similarly, I told you medical perquisites was rule 3A, where so many exemptions are given. I told you that if approved by the commissioner, I hope you remember medical, in a medical I told you the hospital for prescribed disease under rule 3A, if approved by commissioner, in reality that approval requires so many things. So when in real life you go, you refer these things always. You're not only dependent on the books, academic books only, not always, they will simply give you an idea, but in reality you have to refer the original notifications and rules. Now this is how approval is being obtained. Commissioner gives the approval on the basis of so many things. Hotel, this not hotel, hospital is ventilated, at least 10 iron spring beds, 1 operation theatre, 1 labor room, 1 duty room, adequate storage of medicine, water in the hospital is fit for drinking, etc. So many things are required. Hospital is having sterilized oxygen cylinders, surgical equipments, etc., etc. 1 qualified doctor on duty always. These things are not for examination purpose, but these are necessary for me as a teacher to show you, so that you don't fall into the trap of only learning the simple things only, or only some guides only, from where you can simply get your examination questions solved. In reality, only marks doesn't provide you everything. Knowledge provides the things. Marks will not always help. They will help only up to some extent, not beyond that. So don't run behind marks only. Better you start learning the things. Okay, then these are those diseases: cancer, TB, AIDS, which I told you in rule 3A sub rule 2. Disease of heart, blood, lymph glands, bone marrow, respiratory system, nervous system, urinary system, liver, gallbladder, digestive system, etc., etc. Disease of eye, ear, nose, throat, etc. All diseases which are require at least 3 days continuous hospitalization. Gynecological treatment requiring at least 3 days hospitalization, burn injuries, etc., etc. Now, these are the rules which we apply in real life when we want to compute the value of perquisite. For our level, we simply compute what? Value which is taxable. So that's only a numerical task. But in reality, you work much more than what is only numerical. Excel can easily tell you the numerical value. You simply apply a software and that will give you the answer. But the softwares will not understand the concepts clearly. You have to give them the command. So that is why you don't run behind only numerical solutions only, that if you are getting correct answer, that is all the thing. No. Learn the theory, read the act, read rules, read notification, and then you will gradually find that you are becoming habitual in that case in reading the original sources only. So the things which are looking tough right now, you might find those things easy maybe after 1 or 2 years. So you need to see these original things. That is why I was showing those things. Anyhow, perquisites are over now. Let me move to remaining concept of salary so that we can wind up the chapter. And that is that I have covered now everything till gross salary. If you remember the format of computing income under the head salary, if you remember the format of computation of income under the head salaries, okay, for an assessment chair. I have covered everything which is till gross salary, like basic salary, bonus, commission, etc. Retirement benefits, I have shown the calculations. All allowances, I have shown how to compute the taxable values and all perquisites. Now nothing is left. So gross salary, till gross salary, everything is clear. But what after gross salary? Now that I will teach you. So above gross salary, what are things comes that I have already shown you how to compute the taxable value. After gross salary now, we have what? Can you tell me what we deduct after gross salary? Only one thing. Deductions under section, it's section 16.
16.
And yeah, and in this there are 3 deductions. I have shown you only one, standard deduction. Okay, I have shown only one, which is flat how much? Maximum 50. If my gross salary itself is 40,000, then standard deduction by default becomes 40,000. Otherwise, if my gross salary is above 50,000, then maximum standard deduction is 50. That I have already shown. 2 now new things which I need to show you is entertainment allowance and professional tax, or I can call it as tax on employment. These 2 are new. So let us start, and then I'll be having my final answer, income under the head salaries. So let us first discuss entertainment allowance. Okay, entertainment allowance. It is my second deduction under section 16. First is standard deduction and second is this. First of all, ignore the deduction. First of all, it is an allowance, so it should be above gross salary. So my first task is add it in gross salary. While computing gross salary, first of all you add it because it is an allowance. And can you tell me it is which category allowance? In allowances, I don't know whether you now remember or not, there were 5 categories which I taught. What was category 1? Allowance where exemption depends upon actual expenditure. Yeah, category 2, allowance where exemption depends upon provisions. Third, allowance where exemption depends upon actual expenditure as well as provision. Fourth, allowance which is fully exempt. Can you tell me an allowance which was fully taxable? This entertainment allowance was covered in which category? Any idea? If you remember category 1, 2, 3, 4, then you can easily tell me the answer. This allowance was covered in which category? Hmm?
4 category.
5th category. It was fully taxable, there is no exemption. Even today there is no exemption. Section 16 doesn't say exemption, it uses the word deduction, not exemption. And there is a huge difference between deduction and exemption. Though both the things are deducted, but there is a huge difference. In exemption, you do not include at all as an income. In deduction, first you assume it that it is an income, you include it as income, and then you deduct something. In exemption, you do not add anything, you directly ignore it. In deduction, you first add it and then you deduct something. So there is a difference between exemption and deduction. Allowance was not at all exempt. Entertainment allowance was not at all exempt. So the moment I said that there is no exemption, all these 4 categories are skipped then. If this allowance was not at all exempt, so I cannot say that it was covered in category 1, 2, 3 or 4. So by default, it was covered in category 5 where it was fully taxable. Since it was fully taxable, I have written this point because of this logic that you add entertainment allowance received in gross salary and after this and then compute the deduction under section 16 on account of entertainment allowance. First, you have to add it. Then, how much is allowed as deduction? That is another question. Now we will deduct it. How and why? So, least of the following is allowed as deduction. We will compute 3 points, and whichever is least is allowed as deduction. Least of the following is allowed as deduction. First point, flat, 5,000 rupees. Flat. That means maximum deduction will never exceed 5,000. Second, 20% of basic salary. Only basic. Only basic. No allowance, no perquisite, nothing. Only basic. No bonus, no commission, nothing. Third, entertainment allowance actually received. Least of the following is allowed as deduction under section 16. That's it. So first you add full amount above gross salary and then you give deduction as per least of these three. That's it. One note you should remember: deduction under section 16 on account of entertainment allowance is only available to a government employee. Only to a government employee. Non-government employee are not entitled for any deduction of entertainment allowance. Their full amount is by default taxable. In government employee, at least I can claim some deduction on account of entertainment allowance, but no deduction under section 16 on account of entertainment allowance is no deduction. No deduction is available to a non-government employee. No deduction. Is the point clear? If yes, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand if the point is clear. Very good. So let me discuss a small numerical from my book. And I will not discuss, you will tell me the answer directly. It is from page 4.54. G, a government employee. G is a government employee, is earning basic salary of 8 lakh. Basic salary rupees 8 lakh. Entertainment allowance received rupees 36. That's it. Can you tell me income under the head salary? I just need the answer of income under the head salary. Just remember the format in your mind and tell me the answer. Income under the head salaries. Any answer. It will take only 1 minute to compute the answer. Income under the head salaries.
8,31,000.
Okay.
So
the answer is
7,81,000.
831 is one answer. The next answer was
781,000.
781. Any other answer? Try to compute.
Sorry, sir, I would like to change my answer to 781. I got.
Acha, okay. Any other answer?
7,95,000.
ये कहां से आ गया? 795 तो दूर दूर तक ही नहीं आ सकता, आपका कैसे आ गया भाई? ये कैसे निकाला आपने? यू टेल मी हाउ यू हैव कंप्यूटेड 795? $795 कैसे आ सकता है? पता तो होना चाहिए, चाहिए आंसर नहीं है, बट एटलीस्ट वी मस्ट नो. 795 you computed by deducting 5,000 from 8 lakh.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I read wrong. Sorry.
ये तो कोई लॉजिक नहीं है, ये तो गलत है. 781 is the correct answer. Those who got 781, please raise your hand. $781. Those who got 781, please raise your hand. It is very simple. You simply compute you just have the format in your mind. Basic salary, 8 lakh. I told you that entertainment allowance is fully taxable and that is why to be added above gross salary. It is my gross salary. From this, I will give a deduction of how much? Flat deduction under section 16. Standard deduction, 50,000. And then entertainment allowance. How much is allowed as deduction? Is the employer government? First of all, yes. So least 3 points. 5,000. 20% of basic, 1,60,000. Because basic is only 8 lakh, so 20% of not only 8 lakh बेसिक वैसे बहुत कुछ होता है, ये एग्जाम्पल ही गलत है. इंडिया में तो रियल लाइफ में किसी गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉय की सैलरी है ही नहीं 8 लाख. आई विल चेंज इट नेक्स्ट ईयर. ओके, बिकॉज लॉजिकली इट्स रॉन्ग. 8 लाख तो प्रेसिडेंट की नहीं है. 20% ऑफ 8 lakh. Third, entertainment allowance received is 6,000. So which is least? 5,000. So that's it. This is 781. Please raise your hand if 781 you have understood. Very good. Next example also you should try, and that is let me again give you that example from it is now on page 4.55. Now employee is H, a non-government employee. Non-government. Now his basic salary 8 lakh and entertainment allowance 36,000. Now you tell me income under the head salary. What is my taxable salary?
7,86,000.
Yeah, 786 is correct answer. Those who are getting 786, please raise your hand. Non-government employee, so no deduction on account of entertainment allowance. Plus 8 lakh plus 36 minus 50,000. That's it. Those who are getting this answer, please raise your hand. Very good. So most of you have computed this answer, and the last concept now is last deduction on account of professional tax. That is last one. Deduction number 3. Tax on profession. Before discussing tax on profession, let me show you Indian Constitution. Because tax on profession is under the purview of states. state government can impose tax on profession under Article 276 of Indian Constitution. So I will discuss the tax implication later on. Let me first show you Indian Constitution, on which the nation is being governed. The world's second largest populated country has been governed because of this constitution. Otherwise, it's not so easy to govern a single human being, but this constitution is being governing so many of us, or you can say all of us. Have you seen Indian Constitution earlier? Please raise your hand. So only 3 people have seen Indian Constitution earlier. ये भी नहीं पता इनके by mistake hand raised हैं या ये लो by mistake ही थे. This is Indian Constitution. Whenever you have time to read, find a good book. Don't read this Indian Constitution, it will be a little bit tough for you, but read a good book on this. There are many books available in the market, you must read it. So this is the Constitution of India as on 9th December 20. It is not that original Constitution, original was handwritten, but it is now typed version. Ministry of Law and Justice, Legislative Department, Government of India. Okay, so there are articles. You can see these are articles. Under acts, we use the word section, section 1, section 2, section 3. But under constitution, I'm using the word article 1, article 2, article 3. Because this constitution is, you can say, the most relevant, and that document, all acts are within the purview of the constitution. So it is having the highest regard in terms of law. So in acts, we use the word section. So to differentiate the level or status of this book, you can say, this document, you can say, this constitution, we don't use section 1 and 2, we use article. All international treaties of United Nations, World Bank, etc., when you read, you will find article 1, article 2. They don't use section because their status or their coverage is wider than acts. So it is article. So tax on profession, trades, callings, and employments. So let us read the detail now. This is what Article 276 says. It's not tough. When you start reading the Income Tax Act, when you start reading the Act, you will find every other legal document very easy. So whenever you study any legal subject, don't read only books. Books might help you, but never allow your mind to be encroached upon by legal books only. Read document, original document, then you take the help of books. This is Article 276. Taxes on professions, trades, callings, and employments. It is what? Can you tell me what is this italic one? How will I read this one? How will I read it? It is clause 1. Under articles, when we use any heading as article, then within this, it's not section, subsection, or so. It is clause 1. So clause 1 of Article 276 says what? Notwithstanding anything in Article 246, it does not matter what Article 246 says. No law of the legislature of a state, that means state government law, a law which is made by a state, relating to taxes for the benefit of the state or of a municipality, district board, local board, or other local authority therein in respect of profession, trade, calling, or employment shall be invalid on the ground that it relates to a tax on income. Can anyone simplify these 4 lines? In fact, 3 lines only. Can anyone simplify that what this clause wants to convey to the readers?
Tax
like income from professions, trades, callings, or employments.
Again,
It
you
is not
explain.
invalid.
What is not invalid?
The tax, the state tax or a municipality or district, it's not invalid if they
Why?
tax professions, because it says so that
No, 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 no. Any other? You are not explaining it correctly. Any other? It simply says that any imposition or whenever any state government imposes tax on profession, you cannot say that it is invalid because it is a tax on income. This logic will not prevail. Any imposition of tax on profession by a state will not be treated as invalid just by giving this argument that, oh, it is invalid because it is a tax on income. No, this argument will not prevail. That is, it is perfectly valid for a state to impose tax on profession, and the argument that tax on income, it is a tax on income, is not, will not stand. Normally, the income tax is in the power of central government. Tax on income is within the purview of central government. So a central government cannot give this logic that it is a tax on income, so it is illegal. No, Article 276 clause 1 gives the power to state. It says that if you impose a tax on profession, it will be valid even if someone says that it is a tax on income. Please raise your hand if this point is clear. If you have understood this point, please raise your hand. Now, next clause 2. Amount payable in respect of any one person, that means I am one person, to the state or to any one municipality, district board, local board, or other local authority in the state by way of taxes on professions, trades, callings, and employment shall not exceed 2,500 rupees per annum. So the maximum state government can impose the tax on profession, and that maximum amount cannot exceed 2,500 per annum from one person. If I am working in any state and, for example, this state imposes tax on profession, maximum they can collect from me is 2,500 per annum. I hope it is clear. 3. Power of the legislature of a state to make laws as aforesaid. As aforesaid means this tax on profession. To make laws as aforesaid with respect to taxes on profession, trade, callings, and employment shall not be construed as limiting in any way the power of Parliament to make laws with respect to taxes on income arising from this profession. Now, just because the Article 276 has given power to the state government to impose tax on profession if they want, it does not mean that now Parliament cannot impose tax on income from such profession. Parliament cannot impose tax on profession, but from this profession, whatever income will be earned, on that income, Parliament can still impose the tax. This is what clause 3 is. If you have understood, please raise your hand. That just because state government is having full power to impose tax on profession, from that profession, whatever income will be earned, on this, state government cannot say that Parliament cannot impose the tax. Parliament is still free to impose not tax on profession, but tax on income from that profession on which tax on profession has been imposed. If you have understood this point, please raise your hand. Next, you have to start reading yourself. Okay, so I wanted to show you that constitution also through that professional tax. If you have time available, better you purchase a good book and read this constitution. See, so many things. It is the main, just 256-page document and governing the entire nation. These are like fundamental rights you can see here. Parliament has no power to go against the constitution, as has been given the ruling by Honorable Supreme Court so many times. Different ruling. Sometimes it has been said that Parliament can alter the basic structure. Sometimes it has been said that Parliament cannot amend the basic structure. So this discussion and debate goes on. These are fundamental rights: right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion. That is why, because of this, we can say that in India, every person who is having different religion, whether Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Jain, whatever, we all have right to practice our own religion, because Constitution gives us this right, etc., etc. Okay, these are directive principles. Then executive. That is why we say that president is the executive head of the state. All agreements, international, etc., are signed by the president. Then parliament. So many things are there. Better you should find time and read. These are legislative powers, judiciary, executive, state legislatures, and let me show you that schedule 6. If you remember, I think you must have listened that union list, state list, concurrent list. It is in our 7th schedule of the constitution. On union list, one union list where only central government can frame the laws. Like on defense matter, state has no role. Defense, military, okay, CBI. These are central powers. United Nations organizations, powers related to this. Atomic energy, ammunition, firearms, explosive, diplomatic representation. These are in the purview of center. List 2 only exclusive purview of state. And why income tax is under center? Because of entry list 82, taxes on income other than agriculture income. Other than agriculture income, so this is central government. Custom duty is central government. List 2 is state government. Okay, public order, police, prison. These are state. Burial grounds, cremation grounds. You must be having a little bit idea. Gambling is only state government. Taxes on land and building. That is why when you register any property, sub-registrar collects the tax, so that revenue goes to the state, not to the center. Taxes on consumption or sale of electricity, state subject. Then this is concurrent list where both center and state can frame the laws, but in case of any clash, center's law prevails. And about languages also, so many times we enter into discussion. So that language is 8. Eighth schedule defines, gives so many languages. These all are Indian languages: Assamese, Bengali, Bodo, Dogri, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Kashmiri, etc. There are 22 such languages as defined in Telugu, Urdu, Tamil, Sindhi, Santhali, Sanskrit, Punjabi, Odia, Nepali. Okay, these all are our 8th schedule languages. Anyhow, that was to give you an idea about the document. And in the last lecture, I was also discussing with you that you should find time to read the book India 2021, that is published by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Let me show that also, so that if in future you have time, you can read it. Then we will end the class. Professional texts I will discuss later on. Already the time is over. But find time to purchase this book and read it. That is publicationsdivision.nic.in. On Amazon, etc. Of course, you can find it. Every year, Ministry publishes this book. It gives you the complete idea what India is all about presently. So find time to read the book. It is very, very good book. It is India 2021. Let me see this. Must be available here. This is India 2021. Okay, this is that book. This is the book which you can purchase, only 300 rupees. It is India 2021. You must read it. It is available in Hindi as well as in English, and I don't know whether it is available in other languages or not, but you must read it. Excellent book. It has an economic survey also. You should try to read if you have time. Economic survey, you must read it, being commerce. Anyhow, so let us discuss this remaining discussion of taxation topics in the next class. So that's all from my side. Our tax on profession for the purpose of income tax is incomplete. I simply showed you document of that book, India 2021 and Constitution, and I try to give you an idea that when you start reading the Act, you will find all other legal documents very easy to read and interpret. So that's all from my side. We will meet in the next lecture and we will wind up salary in the next class. All remaining miscellaneous topics. Goodbye.